The 70th session of the General Assembly opens in New York in the U.S. World leaders and country delegation arrive for what is perceived as the largest gathering ever of the United Nations. More than 200 state leaders are scheduled to speak.
May I ask?
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon convenes the debate and commends the adoption of the 2030 agenda, including the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Ban stresses that the United Nations must remember the promises made in its charter in order to overcome the grim realities of the present. The UN Secretary General says the world is facing growing inequality, lack of trust and impatience with leadership. He calls for the translation of promises on paper to action by backing a bold new sustainability agenda that aims to wipe out poverty and build a sustainable future for all.
I welcome the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the renewed pledge by developed countries to invest 0.7% of gross national income in official development assistance. Aid works, but few countries have met this target. I salute those that have and urge others to follow their example. Climate finance will be crucial. I urge developed countries to meet the agreed goal of $100 billion per year by 2020. We must also get the Green Climate Fund up and running. The world continues to squander trillions in wasteful military spending. Why is it easier to find the money to destroy people and planet than it is to protect them? Succeeding generations depend on us to finally get our priorities right. Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, suffering today is at heights not seen in a generation. 100 million people require humanitarian assistance, immediate humanitarian assistance. At least 60 million people have been forced to flee their home or their countries. The United Nations has asked for nearly $20 billion to meet this year's needs, six times the level of a decade ago. UN humanitarian agencies and our partners are braving difficult conditions to reach people. Member states have been generous, but demands continue to dwarf funding. The World Humanitarian Summit in May 2016 in Istanbul is a critical moment to reaffirm solidarity and explore how to better build resilience and address emergencies.
The UN chief, in his words, said 4 years of diplomatic paralysis by the Security Council and others have allowed the crisis in Syria to spin out of control.
We have about half of what we need to help the people of Iraq, South Sudan, and Yemen, and just a third for Syria. Our response plan for Ukraine is just 39% funded. And the appeal for Gambia, where 1 in 4 children suffers from stunting, has been met with a silence. Numbers this low raise suffering to a new high. People need emergency assistance, but what they want even more is lasting solutions.
Leader after leader takes to the podium, vocalizing their concerns and speaking.
I will never hesitate to protect my country or our allies, unilaterally and by force where necessary. But I stand before you today believing in my core that we, the nations of the world, cannot return to the old ways of conflict and coercion. We cannot look backwards. We live in an integrated world, one in which we all have a stake in each other's success. We cannot turn back those forces of integration. No nation in this assembly can insulate itself from the threat of terrorism or the risk of financial contagion, the flow of migrants, or the danger of a warming planet. The disorder we see is not driven solely by competition between nations or any single ideology. And if we cannot work together more effectively, we will all suffer the consequences. That is true for the United States as well. No matter how powerful our military, how strong our economy, we understand the United States cannot solve the world's problems alone. In Iraq, the United States learned the hard lesson that even hundreds of thousands of brave, effective troops, trillions of dollars from our treasury, cannot by itself impose stability on a foreign land. Unless we work with other nations under the mantle of international norms and principles and law that offer legitimacy to our efforts, we will not succeed.
There would be no other rules left but the rule of force. We would get a world dominated by selfishness rather than collective work. A world increasingly characterized by dictate rather than equality.
About $5 million that we could have invested into sustainable development. And the crisis with the internally displaced person, 1.5 million, is the biggest problem not only for Ukraine, but for the whole region. Ukraine aspires to peace and prosperity, and together with the partner states, accept the maximum efforts to settle the conflict by peaceful diplomatic means. After putting to an end to the military aggression, establishing peace and restoring Ukraine full sovereignty over Donbas region and Crimea, it will be extremely important to bring millions of people back to a normal life. The Ukrainian society is focused today first and foremost on the fighting corruption, ensuring equal opportunities and social justice, effective public health system, promoting decent work, ensuring affordable education for all, promoting innovation, development and sustainable infrastructure, ensuring sustainable energy supply, ensuring food security, healthy environment. And I would like to assure all of you that to achieve the SDGs at the national level, Ukraine will implement new programs and projects which are deemed to ensure the practice of macroeconomic stability, environmental balance, and social cohesion. The SDGs will serve as an overarching framework for the further transformation in Ukraine, including in the context of the implementation of the Strategy 2020.